The Nightmare Before Christmas is a world that has slowly evolved over the past 30 years. Yes, it's been that long since it released. And as time goes on, new stories are added to the lore. The Battle for the Pumpkin King released on September 23rd of 2023. And what's contained within it really makes me wonder about what the Pumpkin King really is and how Oogie Boogie eventually grew to become the monster he is. In this video, we're going to break down the prequel to The Nightmare Before Christmas and how the events in this graphic novel shaped the Halloween world we've all grown to love, all starting from the actions of an old, sinister king of Halloween. So let's set the stage because there's a lot to unpack here. The book opens up with Jack and Oogie Boogie competing in friendly challenges. And this is interesting because they seem like the best of friends. Neither Jack nor Oogie seems upset when they lose, and overall it seems like a very healthy friendship. They are kids and everyone around them is younger too, which raises questions about how people age in Halloweentown, but this is the earliest version of this world we've seen yet. But it isn't long after this that we see the mayor roll into town, but he's not alone. In fact, he's not even driving the car. It seems someone older with more seniority is at the wheel, and they are the one making the announcement. This individual is dressed in black with a white draping collar adorned with a spiderweb brooch and jabot, but their head is a molding old carved jack-o'-lantern, darkening in its core with various black tendrils emitting from it. He holds a cane and his hands look to be gnarly wood, a true scarecrow. They are the Pumpkin King, and have been the Pumpkin King for a very long time if this spider-lace jabot is anything to go by. But it's immediately after meeting this character that we find out that they have a sinister side. As not long after they announce that they want to host a challenge for the next Pumpkin King, they have an aside thought about how they wish to control the newly elected king, this town, and through them, all of Halloween itself. So right away we're hit with, holy cats and bats, there's a new old king of Halloween? Followed by the thought that he isn't just spooky fun like Jack Skellington, he seems evil and corrupt. Up until this point, the concept and role of the Pumpkin King has been kind of vague. We knew Jack is the king, and in the video games, Oogie and Jack have fought over the title. Although we'll talk about the inconsistencies with the games and novels a bit later. Regardless though, we never knew who the ruler of Halloweentown was, and I've talked about this in previous videos. Is it the mayor, someone who claims that they are just an elected official? Is it the Pumpkin King themselves? Heck, death is lurking in Halloweentown too, and we can find him hiding in certain shots in the movie. The Grim Reaper really seems like he should be the one in charge, no? But this story kind of frames things a bit differently. This old withered pumpkin man we find out is named Edgar. Whether or not there is any connection to Edgar Allan Poe is not mentioned. Anyway, Edgar seems to be powerful and influential as the story progresses into a series of competitions between Oogie Boogie and Jack Skellington to see who is better suited for the role of Pumpkin King. But all the while, Edgar is really trying to get Oogie Boogie to win. I think he's identified Oogie as the more easily corruptible of the two, literally calling him a vessel to be filled with whatever. In this case, filled with Edgar's evil plans. As the contests play out, Edgar is always whispering into Oogie's ear, chattering for him to cheat and bend the rules, to take advantage of shortcuts when no one is looking. Oogie seems naively impressionable because being the Pumpkin King seems so important, and on top of that, he wants to win against his friend Jack, like in old times. This story makes it seem like Oogie was more so transformed into being a villain, rather than Oogie natively being bad to his core. Eventually, Edgar takes young Oogie back to his lair, which fans will recognize as Oogie Boogie's lair pre-casino makeover. As Pumpkin King, Edgar would eventually give the lair to Oogie Boogie, but at this part in the story, Oogie has already lost the first challenge, which was a pumpkin carrying contest, the goal being to retrieve as many pumpkins as possible in a short period of time. Oogie smashed his pumpkins en route and has less whole pumpkins than Jack did. Jack also dropped and smashed pumpkins, but assembled a jack-o'-lantern out of the pieces, and the judges vote for Jack's creativity. So, the takeaway from the contest was that Oogie felt like he got cheated out of winning. Edgar takes notice of this and feeds into it by telling Oogie what he wants to hear. While within Edgar's lair, Edgar comforts Oogie and then eventually turns him to the idea of cheating in the competition himself. Edgar states he's not going to play fair, so why should we? If cheating is the only way to win the game, then the object of the game itself is to cheat. By this point, lots of bugs and snakes and other slithery creatures have been gathering around them for quite some time. Edgar seemingly draws them to this location before ultimately scooping them up into cups. The first batch of snake and spider stew? The more creepy crawlers that Oogie ingests, the more twisted he seems to become. And this is kind of interesting because it seems like Oogie Boogie got lured somewhere and was coerced into being more chaotic. Edgar's true goal is to make Halloweentown a truly terrifying place, a place where fear rules, and he needs his successor to feel the same, and be a puppet. However, we need to remember what Edgar said at the beginning of the graphic novel. I can maintain control of them, this town, and even Halloween itself. Them being the new Pumpkin King, who at this point Edgar believes is destined to be Oogie Boogie. And as the story plays out, it's not too far of a stretch to believe that Edgar filling Oogie Boogie with vile things made Oogie more vile himself. Because during the second challenge, we realize that this old Pumpkin King has some magical powers. So the second challenge involves building a tower of bones, and whoever can build the tallest tower will be deemed the winner. But as the towers are being built, Edgar of course attempts to cheat by bringing bones to Oogie so he can build without having to retrieve bones from the surrounding boneyard area. This seems a little disrespectful to the dead, but as Jack's tower grows taller, Edgar reveals that he has the power to control the wind itself, which is interesting because from a lore perspective, there really isn't a whole lot of magic per se in the series. We have a mad scientist who creates things, Sally who has premonitions and potion skills, and Jack's experiments, but the fact that this Pumpkin King can command the wind to do his bidding is very interesting. Is it the power of the Pumpkin King, or was it something that this old scarecrow always had? Jack's tower is blown over and he loses, and the third challenge begins. This challenge involves carving pumpkins, and of course there's plenty of cheating to be had here as well. Long story short, Oogie ends up losing because he spends more time heckling Jack than he does actually carving a good pumpkin. But by the time the competition is over, Edgar casts Oogie out as he claims Oogie did not try hard enough, even with him bending the rules in his favor. By this point, Oogie is already gone. Unlike the Oogie that this story starts with, this more sinister version says he doesn't need Edgar and that he will be seizing his lair. He casts aside his friendship with Jack as he retreats. Edgar congratulates Jack on his victory, and then the old Pumpkin King retreats to the pumpkin patch under the iconic Spiral Hill. He mutters to himself that it's a shame his plan depended on such a loser to carry it out. Meanwhile, as the story draws to a close, Oogie Boogie claims no one will ever cheat him again as he overtakes Edgar's old lair. And it seems that going forward from this moment, Oogie Boogie never broke free from the effects of Edgar. Sure, it could have just been Oogie Boogie's core character all along, but there's something about the setup between Edgar and Oogie that makes it feel like Oogie was a bit of a victim. If a demon hands you a cup and you drink from it, are you at fault? Oogie Boogie was so blinded by the idea of winning friendly competitions with his rival that he eventually became twisted when something so monumental was added as a reward. He believed he could trust Edgar, even when he thought Edgar's advice didn't make sense. But all of it was just a ploy in Edgar's eyes. Oogie was expendable. As Edgar lays down in the pumpkin patch at the end of the book, he claims, "Oh well, for now at least I can finally have some peace." Okay, Edgar. And this just goes to show how uncaring he was all along. While he is here resting and forgetting about how bad the day was, Oogie Boogie is forever changed. A self-banished monster who, as far as I can tell, still seems to be under the effects of Edgar's curse. And like I said, those core obsessive traits may have always been in Oogie Boogie, but it's hard to argue that Edgar didn't play a role in creating the villain of the series. He not only filled Oogie up with bugs and evil ideas, but Edgar divided a friendship by pulling strings behind the scenes. And at the end of the day, the old Pumpkin King couldn't even care less. Now, those of you who have watched, read, and played all forms of media revolving around The Nightmare Before Christmas may be thinking, wait a second, none of this makes sense. How are Jack and everyone else children? I thought the residents of Halloweentown were ageless. Well, minus that one time right after the original movie released, where we discovered Jack eventually becomes a father. Yeah, that was a bit of a doozy, but I digress. The thing is, it's hard to tell what is canon and what isn't, truly. Like in the Game Boy Advance game, The Pumpkin King, Jack and Oogie haven't even met yet, despite the game only taking place 1 year before the movie, whereas this graphic novel depicts events way before then. And in this book, Jack already knows who Sally is, whereas in the quote-unquote prequel game, I think he meets Sally for the first time a year before the events of the movie. So there's definitely some inconsistency with the lore for sure. But I suppose when you have different mediums, a movie, games, books, etc., which have different contributing writers written piecemeal over the span of 30 years, it's no surprise things don't line up. But the implications of this story in particular are kind of wild. I mean, Lock, Shock, and Barrel are babies here. We see how they first interact with and meet Oogie Boogie, becoming Boogie's boys from babydom. But were they born here? Did they die as kids? Sally's hair is much shorter and apparently can grow. No spoilers for the Pumpkin Queen book here, unless she just replaced it by sewing on longer hair. And although the mayor is, quote, just an elected official, he's still the mayor here for like ever ago. We have Edgar over here talking about how he doesn't even want to retire and how he isn't ready to do so. Meanwhile, the mayor feels like he's been the mayor for, well, forever. Edgar's position as Pumpkin King is one of tenured status, but it isn't known how long he actually served for. And yet, he's also the only person who seemingly has direct magical powers outside of squeezing down chimneys and making reindeer fly. Jack is a self-proclaimed master of fright, but aside from his general obsessive curiosity, I don't recall him having a special holiday power of wind. On that note, Edgar does eventually lay to rest in the pumpkin patch, and it makes you wonder if that's where all pumpkin kings eventually lay to rest. Are all these jack-o'-lanterns the spirits of past kings? Although in the movie, Jack talks about the only thing remaining of him after 1,000,000 years will be dust and a plaque. The Spiral Hill, Cemetery, and Pumpkin Patch are all right next to each other, so it does get you thinking. But there's just something about the Nightmare Before Christmas style stop motion that sets my creative heart afire with the need to make something. And with Skillshare, finding that next thing to create has never been more fun. There are so many classes on drawing, writing, painting, animation, even claymation and stop motion armature creation. I've been diving into a few classes like Lucy from Ballyhoo Creations series on creating armatures for my creepy sewing projects. She gives best practices and explains all her material choices so you'll have the right tools for each creation. And because I love mixing weird things together, Kaho's class perfectly blends the creepy side of claymation with unique hand-drawn animation for some otherworldly results. It goes over how to set up your clay portion and then combine everything into one truly one-of-a-kind animated artwork. There are thousands more classes to dive into too. Anything to follow your creativity and take you from beginner to pro, or even learn a new career, you'll find on Skillshare. And right now, the first 500 people to use my link will get access to one of Skillshare's best offers: 30 days free and 40% off your first year of Skillshare membership. That's 30 days of making your creative thing. Do be one of the first 500 to check it out soon using my link, because now is the time to do that thing you've always wanted to do. I can't wait to see what you make. Thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Canon or not, although the challenges themselves and the flow of the novel can feel a bit silly at times, I did really enjoy the deeper meaning that these prequel ideas added to the lore of the world in The Nightmare Before Christmas. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Did you enjoy this origin story of Jack and Oogie? What did you think of Edgar? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you, friends and fiends, for diving into this new Nightmare Before Christmas lore. Do subscribe so you won't miss the next spooky, creepy thing crawling out of the cauldron quite soon. Goodbye.